Hello, this is Dan with the Veterans for Peace Forum, and this is our program that comes on the fourth Saturday of every month. Last month we weren't able to do that, and so we replayed a show. So this month I actually have a number of guests, and we're going to start off here today with Alice Perry, who is the founder of Central Oregon Veterans Ranch. And it's called, their mission is to provide transitional care to veterans in rural settings that promotes community and sustainable agriculture. Now, Alice has come up here all the way from Bend, Oregon. I know that's been a long drive, and I hope you've gotten some rest here a little bit.
Yeah, it's a beautiful day.
Beautiful day to come up, yeah. Glad it wasn't raining. So one of the things that this program is about giving veterans a voice to tell their stories. It's also about bringing in professionals and people who care for veterans and letting veterans know that there is help out there for them when they need it. So could you tell us a little bit about how this all started? And just first start about your relationship to veterans. You talked, you came from a family of veterans?
Correct. My brother is currently still active duty. He's a medevac helicopter pilot. He's been in about 16 years and 3 tours in Iraq. I'm a licensed professional counselor. So when my brother deployed in 2003 for the invasion of Iraq, that was quite a shock to our family and to me, and I was actually living in Portland at the time, and just became very interested in veterans and veteran families. My grandfather was a C-130 pilot and flight instructor in the Air Force career as well, and I have a nephew currently serving in the Marine Corps who's about to go to Afghanistan. So I worked for 6 years for the VA. I worked 3 years here at the Portland VA Medical Center as a licensed counselor, and then 3 years out in Bend at the community-based clinic. Not actually at the vet center, but at the VA clinic out there. They did get a vet center since I've been out there. So really how this started is when I was still in Portland, we had a young veteran we were working with who was a combat veteran, Iraq veteran, who also had military sexual trauma and was having his first psychotic break. And so he ended up, of course, on the psych ward, 5C, where he ended up kind of blowing up, kind of losing control. Right. And a colleague and I had a very successful relationship working with this young man. The rest of the staff didn't. There was just this. It struck me that this purely clinical approach of taking someone who'd had severe trauma and locking them in a room with fluorescent lights and trying to medicate the trauma out of them, at least for this veteran, it wasn't working. Right. And I just had this vision. I don't even know that I'd ever been to Central Oregon. I had a vision of a ranch out east where veterans could go and work and sleep under the stars and get their hands dirty and be away from the sensory stimulation of the city, and kind of take a break from peace. So that was kind of the first inkling of how this started. And then when I started working out in Bend, I took over some therapy groups from a clinician, 4 groups of Vietnam combat veterans with PTSD. Ended up facilitating those groups by myself, and became very interested in end-of-life issues, specifically for combat veterans, and creating a place of peace where veterans could finally find some healing. So that's kind of how the vision actually started.
So when you talk about end-of-life veterans, what are you saying, are there a number of veterans that are coming in there because of war trauma? Are they veterans that are just that are aging and need help, or are they, like I was just telling you earlier, my brother was somebody who was self-medicating as a Vietnam veteran, somebody who took my place when I was there. We kind of traded places. I was there, he came in, and he was one of 7 to 11 people left alive in the company, but drugs and alcohol, mainly alcohol at the end of his life, brought him to cirrhosis of the liver, and he spent almost 2 years in sort of in and out of the hospital and various care. You know, I was lucky at the the last part of his life, he would actually, he was talking, he was walking, and I would go see him at a place. We're getting ready to move him into a veterans residency, and then he died. So it was. I saw him just the day before just that day when he died. So it felt good to be there and supportive of him. But the places that they were putting him were not. They seemed like the last end of a place, you wouldn't want to ever send anybody.
Yeah.
And so I'm very curious how these veterans are coming there and what kind of quality of
well,
life
and
you're thinking about.
we're still in our startup phase, so we're developing this, and we're looking at properties that are willing to work with us, perhaps to donate or give us a low lease so that we can get this started. But exactly what you're talking about, one of the things that I experienced being in the VA personally, providing care to veterans, was sort of this institutional wounding.
Right.
And it just occurred to me that, we've all endured institutional wounding in some form or another, but veterans more than anyone. Particularly the Vietnam vets being drafted, what they went through there, how they were treated when they came home, and then not having any care when you come home, and sort of the sequelae of events over the next 40 years that occurred. So the idea is to create a place that's not just, pardon the dark humor, but a death camp. What we do right now is we warehouse our old, we put them away in facilities where we don't want to see it, we don't want to deal with it, we don't want to deal with aging or illness or people who are truly suffering. So we want to create an environment. The idea of having a ranch is that you have younger veterans coming and working on that ranch and creating a sense of place, creating a community, so that the veterans who are there spending their final days have younger veterans coming in and hearing their stories, harvesting their stories, visiting with them, sitting with them. We're working right now with Hospice of Redmond. Their executive director is on our advisory board and helping inform the project and the medical aspect of it. And towards the end of my clinical work with the VA, I started losing vets, Vietnam vets, suicide, alcoholism. I started going to visit them in the hospital. So a few months ago, I got to go out with Hospice and visit some of their vets in their homes who were receiving hospice care. And I got to visit with a 93-year-old P-51 pilot, World War II. And he was in amazingly wonderful spirits for someone in hospice. But we got there, and the nurse checked his blood pressure, and he was kind of mellow. And I just started talking to him, and I said, I see that book over there. I hear you were a pilot. Big smile just lit up. I just sat there talking to him for 15 minutes, and I have aviators in my family, so I was asking him all kinds of questions, and he showed me his brother was also a P-51 pilot. This particular veteran he did not go overseas for the war. He was very skilled, so they kept him back as a flight instructor. But his brother did go, and his brother was shot down over England. So he told me to go to the end of the bookshelf and get the picture of the white, headstone of where his brother was buried. And he just came alive.
Yeah.
And towards the end of the visit, the nurse told him, we have to leave. And he's like, where do you have to go?
Yes.
She said, I have to go back to work. And he said, work? And, she said, well, what else should I be doing? And he said, visiting. And I've also connected with a younger veteran here in Portland who was a SEER school instructor.
What school?
SEER school. Survival, Evasion, Rescue. Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
And he's only in his 30s, but he also shares a passion for peace at end of life for veterans, particularly the Vietnam veterans and combat veterans. And so he's heading into this in his healthcare career, and he actually interviewed some veterans at the Dallas Veterans Home. And they provide excellent care. And they're in the process of building 2 more veterans homes, one in Roseburg, one in Lebanon. There's no veteran home in Central Oregon. Veterans can go if they wish to the Dallas Veterans Home.
Right.
But this young man interviewed some of the vets, and some of the feedback he got was very much in line with our mission of what we want to do. The vets were receiving excellent medical care. They were lacking in social engagement. They were lacking in connection to nature, being outside, activities.
Right.
So we want to create that place for veterans where they can finally have some peace at end of life and be in a place where they feel safe because they're surrounded by other vets.
Well, and it's interesting because I mean there's been a lot of new ideas about these sort of veterans farms around the country. Of course, one of our young vets who's going to be on here after you, Angie Hines, and even Ray, who's on your board, right?
Yes, yes.
And Ray Harris, who I've had on the program before in the past, Iraq veteran, who, you know, they that whole idea of alternative ways of treating people, not just to get, like you said, get away from the city and the noise, but to get back to the earth.
To have healing.
Healing is a process for it, and I'm happy Ray's down there. I was hoping he was going to come up here with you.
I was too.
But he needs to.
He's getting some healing of his own.
His own piece. He said, "I had enough of Dan in those." He was just up here when we just had a GI coffee house tour. You know,
Coffee Strong.
Coffee Strong, and we had there was the I forget what it's called, the lantern from Germany, and there was another one from Killian, Texas. That they brought all these 3 coffee houses together as a tour, and it was a very successful tour. But
Great.
To let people know, and I mean, this all came out of the ideas in the Vietnam veterans who started coffee houses all across the country for near bases where people are. So each of these coffee houses are dealing with, you know, veterans who come in them to talk to them about. Or even soldiers that are still in the bases, to talk to them about the needs. It may even be that they're thinking about being a conscientious objector. It may mean that they just want to know their rights within the military if something happens or went wrong. They want to know what their benefits are when they get out. You know, all of these things. There's various ways in which people are helping people, and each of the coffee houses has their sort of own specialties, you might say, but they all kind of work together, and we're hoping that we build more of those across the country, so that it's also just a place for veterans to meet and talk and have a conversation. As you say, you know, you need to be talking to people, and
there need to be ways for veterans to connect to someone who may not be ready actually to ask for help or
That's
to go on that healing journey. If there's just another place where they know they can connect with other vets, that's sometimes what it takes.
Well, it's also, I think, one of the things that, I mean, a lot of things that we're talking about today, PTSD, you know, military sexual trauma. And what I was going to bring up was Agent Orange, you know. I'm an Agent Orange victim myself. And just to let people know, too, we do have a bill out there. I work with the Vietnam Agent Orange Relief and Responsibility Campaign, which is sponsored by Veterans for Peace, our National Veterans for Peace. But one of the things, we have a bill that we rewrote, and Barbara Lee, congressperson, introduced the bill. It's H.R. 2519, called the Victims of Agent Orange Relief Act, and it's out there. We want you can go online and look that up. Just look up HR 2519, and you'll be taken to a government office, and you can follow the bill. But one of the things, we want to get people to sign these cards. You can also go to what's on the screen right now, the website for the Vietnam Agent Orange Relief and Responsibility Campaign, and we have the cards there. You can sign those cards online or print them out and have other people sign it. We want to take it to the Congress and have people, as many of those as we can, to show the support of people in the nation. But one of the things that's different about this bill is not just to deal with Agent Orange cleanup in Vietnam, but also to address the issue of male veterans who had children here in the United States who are not recognized. Women veterans are children, if they're born with birth defects. There are a number of things that are covered for that. But for male veterans, the only thing that's covered is spina bifida. My child was born with congenital heart disease, cleft palate, and other abnormalities, was not recognized, and then died at the age of 3 after surgery went bad. These are the things, and then there's a group of young women who started started off as Vietnam Daughters of Vietnam Veterans, and then they evolved to Children of Vietnam Veterans Health Alliance. And these are children who were born with anomalies and were the daughters of male veterans. And they have been doing a tremendous job of telling the story, their story, individual stories, but telling the story of a number of veterans that have now becoming recognized. The children of these veterans are being recognized as their parents are either died from Agent Orange exposure or
some kind of
suicide or whatever it might be. Vietnam has had an effect on, war has an effect on everybody, and we need to take care of those people. So that was the one thing. Another thing I wanted to talk about your ranch here is that you're basically trying to build this. So you have a grant or a proposal going?
We are getting our 501c3 status right now, and we're looking at properties. We're sort of in the which comes first, the chicken or the egg. When we identify the right property, we'll start a capital campaign for that. You know, perhaps begin leasing it. So we're in startup phase, but we have an advisory board that's been meeting for about 6 months, and just kind of building our infrastructure in terms of our IT support and just getting the word out in the vet community in Central Oregon. We've got a really strong veteran community. I don't know if your listeners are aware of our high population of veterans out in Central Oregon. It's almost 20,000 vets. Deschutes County has almost 18,000 veterans, and Crook and Jefferson 2,000 each. So we've got a very large population to serve and a very significant aging population out there in Central Oregon.
Is there a website for them to get a hold of you? Do you have that up there?
Yes. It's CentralOregonVeteransRanch.org. We also have a Facebook page, Central Oregon Veterans Ranch, and you can also call to ask any questions, or if you want to help in any way, or you have any leads for us in terms of our startup and getting going. It's 503-789-0911.
And they can always contact me. My email will be up on the screen. That's Dan Shea with Veterans for Peace, but I am also, my email is djshea@hotmail.com, and just ask me about the Veterans Ranch, and I will be glad to send you that information, so that will be available to you. I am so glad that you were able to make it up here. Is there anything that you want to say to people out there?
I'd like to give your viewers a couple of resources, just in terms of looking at veterans at end of life. Deborah Grassman's book, Peace at Last. She's worked in Florida with the VA for 30 years, treating veterans in hospice care at end of life, so that's called Peace at Last. There's also an organization called the Twilight Brigade, which is a national volunteer and volunteer training for working with veterans at end of life. And then, of course, I'm a huge fan of Ed Tick's work, War in the Soul. If you're a veteran and you haven't read it, you need to read it. So.
And he takes people on a number of trips in the healing process. And you said you went on a trip recently.
I did. I went to Vietnam in 2012 with John Fisher, who had worked with Ed in going back to Vietnam. So that was a part of my doing that for my vets.
So one thing I really like about this is that not only we're dealing with end of life, we're also dealing with veterans, returning veterans that are helping and working together on this. Right?
Definitely, definitely. We want to sort of blend the generations and have a generative piece as well as sort of that piece at the end. So veterans across the lifespan and how they can plug into this.
Okay. Well, we're gonna break here and we're gonna bring on our other guests. I want to thank you, Alice, so much for being
thank
here.
You so much, Dan.
And I hope you're going to stay for a little while afterwards,
Definitely.
and we can go out and have a conversation together. Another conversation.
Fantastic.
And if they're ready to roll that out, we'll go ahead and do that. And we're going to prepare. We're going to have Angie Hines and Jeff Shoemaker come on here. They've been on the program before, and you got a chance to meet them just a little bit outside.
Definitely, yeah.
things that are held up in these esteems, none of these things seem to have any spiritual relationship to life.
At times the situation's heavy on my heart, still I rise. Articulate my vision while you feel the vibe. In this manipulation game, it seems I'm ill-advised from killing lies, and finally realize it's real lives that bleed. But do we feel they cries? Our dreams televised, sellers lies, and kill what's real inside. Debris, systematic soldiers spraying rounds with no precision. Motivation, motivation, globalism, no religion. It seems unspoken, television, culture, vision. Protecting broken dreams like codes in prison. Selecting vote elections, but won't connect the dots, self-deception. Like followers of pro wrestle plots. Complain you best stop when this game of chess lot. They think they're next to God, police they check the blocks. Investors stock dollars drop, then commence the cops. Real revolutionaries know the struggle never stop, never stop. Real revolutionaries know
the way that the cancers of greed and war, the way that these viruses, these diseases have spread, and no one is really taking responsibility
What's going on?
to effectively deal with these things.
We're the real revolutionaries, hypnotized by the shadow play in front of your eyes. The systematic programming, one with the high energy, predatorial abduction of minds. This seduction in the matrix, put trust in the lies of these elitists. Mass manipulators lead the people. I see the codes like Neo, hungry ghosts feed the ego and live lost. Forget to realize what the real is. Rick Ross used to be a prison guard, and he still is. Until the killers in the $100 villas who ain't got no feelings, we recognize what the deal is. You swallowing that blue pill and following Masons, feeding in to the new form of colonization. For some bread and a place up in the matrix. Think you got it all figured out, cause there nothing is safe. I don't respect you cause I don't respect the system. I got visions of freedom cause I won't accept the prison. Visions, freedom cause I'm
so whatever this disease of aggression and violence and greed and all, whatever this disease mentality is that lives in this life system now, it's eating up the spirit of the diseased. When we leave as humans, we go back to being human being. That really means something. But we live in a reality now, we're in a time where I would say to anyone, protect your spirit. Protect your spirit, because you're in the place where spirits get eaten.
Hello, welcome back. That was Quincy Davis, who is also a.k.a. Soul Miner. That was one of his music pieces. He's also a filmmaker. We had him on the program here a while back. It's his birthday, and he has a show this evening going on right now. It happens to be he's a Soul Miner and Theory Has It, Hazit, at Floyd's Old Town, Northwest. It's 118th Northwest Cooch. And if you're out and about and if you're listening on a radio or streaming or whatever, drop in and see Quincy. They're going to have a mystery guest. I don't know who that's going to be, but should be fun. And I just wanted to say just basically a shout out to Quincy, and always thanking him for the great work he does. And now I wanted to bring back a couple of people here, and this is we have Angie, Hines, Navy veteran, and Jeff Shoemaker, Iraq vet and conscientious objector. We've had both of them, you guys, on the program before. But one of the reasons we're bringing you back is because of an incident that took place here in Portland. When was that date?
That was last Thursday.
Last Thursday. So you've been both of you have been going into the schools and working with a number of groups doing counter recruitment and basically equal access. Could you tell us what equal access means in the schools?
Equal access was voted on in the Portland Public School District in 2011, and it was voted unanimously to allow the same time for counter recruiters in high schools as recruiters get. And that's basically allowing veterans to come and talk to students about their real life experiences and allowing them to ask questions without any agendas behind them or anything. And that's basically what I've been doing for the past 3 years. is going into schools and talking with students, allowing them to ask questions.
And Jeff, anything to add there?
No, I've been doing the same thing for about 4 months now.
Oh, 4 months, great. So what happened? Can you tell us the story?
Well, we went to Cleveland High School, and there was a recruiting event there, and it was just Jeff and I. And for the recruiters, there was the Army, the Marines, the Army National Guard, and the Navy.
Was this an assembly, or?
Well, this was in one classroom,
Okay.
and there were only, for most of the class, there were only 4 students, 2 males and 2 females. And basically, the whole point of equal access is to allow the same amount of time for access to information for the students. And over half of the class period was basically going to, the recruiters had flat screen TVs and they were showing recruitment videos, and this went on well over half of the class. And we could see that we weren't going to be introduced, we weren't being acknowledged. And the problem with this was that there were no school staff or faculty or no third party or moderators present during this time. So basically, Jeff and I took kind of a low moment when not a lot of people were saying anything, and we introduced ourselves to the class. And this was after the recruiters had been already talking for about 30 minutes. And so Jeff and I introduced ourselves. We told the class a little bit about who we were and our history, where we were stationed, what we did. And we started talking about some of the reasons why students may want to think hard about a serious decision of enlisting. And we were interrupted very quickly.
How was that?
Well, I wanted to bring attention to the students, some of the serious statistics that are involved in the military. And one of those things is sexual violence, which there is an epidemic of at this time. And I was interrupted by a lady who was, she was a civilian, some type of Army liaison between the high school and the Army. And she said, well, why do girls go to colleges, and why don't they get raped at fraternities? And that basically stirred up the entire class. At that moment, there was laughing, there was stomping, there was some heckling, and somebody went into, one of the recruiters went into the back of the class, started filming us. And I feel like that was serious bullying behavior. And so we weren't really able to explain ourselves at all at that point. It was basically, the whole entire room was filled with a lot of noise, and there was no conversation happening, there was no listening. And I would say that out of their 30 minutes, we were told to leave. That Army guy came up to you.
About 3 minutes in.
It was less than 5 minutes. We were told that our time was up and we needed to leave. And we left the classroom. And this is something that actually the Portland Public School voted on. We were invited to be there by the school. We had Cleveland visitors stickers on. We had signed in as visitors. And we were asked to be there. And we were ran out by the recruiters. So I feel like this is a really wrong thing to happen. And what needs to happen is we need to really make sure from now on that there is a school faculty present, there is some kind of moderator or school representative available at every single meeting.
Well, it really makes me angry that, first of all, these recruiters behaved in the manner that they do. It's even for recruiters, this is totally unprofessional. This is immature activity of young people, just basically harassing and bullying somebody, which is wrong. we got, and when you put out the letter to let us know about that through Veterans for Peace and other organizations, that actually that story gone all across the world in a sense, because our VIP chapter in the UK in Britain, Ben Griffin put it up on their site, and I've been putting it out wherever I can, and people even in Africa have read about it. People are upset that you guys were treated that way, and they want to know what's going to be done. Where do we go from here? Did you talk to the recruiters at all when they did this, or?
Well, whenever the sergeant who was there recruiting, whenever he came up and asked, he told us basically that we needed to sit down because we were being argumentative. And I told him that he actually had no authority in this situation, that if he would kindly, step aside and let us finish what we were there to do. I think it really just, it came down to a complete, there was no, they didn't want to listen at the end of the day. They had no interest in listening to what we had to say. There was no respect, and I think that was the reason why there weren't any mediators in there, because you don't expect that kind of behavior out of adults. Right. Bottom line, we respected them, and we expected the same thing in return. If they had any questions, then clearly they were going to have their opportunity to ask them. But to interrupt us in the middle of what we were trying to do, there was no desire to find out if they had crossed a line. They just willingly did what they did, and then we basically had to get out of there because it was pretty clear they weren't going to step down from this situation and allow us to finish what we were there to do. Did you saying that there was only 8 students there, or
there was only 4?
4. Mm-hmm. 4 students.
4 students for this entire shenanigans situation. Yeah.
That is unbelievable. How come if it's a classroom, why wasn't there more?
It was in a classroom, but it was a voluntary thing. I don't think students were required to be there. I think it was completely upon their own free will to go in.
And these are probably students who are thinking about going into the
They're
military.
definitely thinking about going. They pretty much are. They possibly have already signed something. And that's fine.
Yes.
I'm not trying to tell anybody not to go. I just think students should definitely be aware of some of the serious matters that they're getting into before they're going, because that's only the smart thing to do, is be educated in the thing that you're going to be doing.
That's right. It's another thing. I know that the school, like if you want the principal to understand what happened in that school, Cleveland's considered fairly progressive school, and my niece actually went there. She's an adult now with children of her own that just graduated from high school. I think she would be very upset that this kind of behavior even happened there at Cleveland. I remember going there and doing reading classes with students who were having difficulty. So I've always found it to be a very progressive school. I'm surprised that they didn't have a teacher there. Is there an attitude change in the school?
I don't think that's what it was. Yeah. I think more than that, it was the fact that there wasn't any counselor responsible for this. There wasn't anybody assigned to oversee this. It was parent volunteers, and I think it may have been out of their hands.
But they invited you there?
Yes, we were invited to be there.
Who invited you exactly?
Somebody through the War Resisters League. It was probably through the school counselor. But there was no one assigned to coordinate this. I think that they just said, yeah, we can go, and so we went. But the War Resisters League is the one that actually coordinates and schedules our meetings with the students. And for that, there hasn't been any problems, but I think there just wasn't enough. There wasn't anybody looking over this.
So what about, I noticed that Grant Remington, our former president of Veterans for Peace, our local chapter here, Chapter 72, wrote a letter to the Lieutenant Brian W. Ryder, who is commander of the United States Portland Recruiting Battalion here, and he wrote about this incident and basically saying that this behavior was unacceptable and something has to be done. Are you looking to have? I would demand that you get an apology from these recruiters. First of all, they should be reprimanded for what they've done, as that is inappropriate. And and if you're trying to make even the military look good, in my opinion, you don't behave like that. I know about being around veterans all my life. I mean, when we're in the field, we behave like clowns a lot of times, right? And it sounded like that's what they were doing. They were clowning around, but we knew where we could do that among ourselves. But when we're with people, we know that we shouldn't be doing that, and that's bad behavior. And I'm worried about it. And we have veterans coming back home now, as the so-called war is winding down. We have a lot of veterans coming back home. What is the military doing to train people as they come back into society? And how are they going to present the people out there and their behavior? And if there's a group of people, like any group of young people coming together, how are they going to present themselves in society? Are they going to create more of a problem in our society, or how do we welcome people back and try to move them in a different direction if the military doesn't have some sort of space in between for people to transition back into society? I think that's a real important thing to do. What did these students, how did they react to all this?
I think that they were kind of shocked, and I'm sad that they had to be there and experience that, to be honest. I don't think they should ever have to be subjected to that. I would even expand the apology to the students. Yes. Because I don't think they should have had to witness that kind of immaturity, and there should have been oversight there. There should have never been voices raised. There should have never been laughing. That's really an inappropriate way to act.
You said they were stomping their feet also?
There was a few stomps, there was a few claps, there was some laughing, loud laughing, and definitely I would just consider it general heckling. And like I said, we were out of there so quickly, within 5 minutes, would you say?
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually, we got a response from who I believe the woman was that made the comment about somehow, which interprets to me that somehow sexual violence in colleges is not as bad as sexual violence in the military. It seemed to have downplayed what she was saying by, well, don't women get raped in fraternities too? And I think that that's just very ridiculous comment to make at all. But apparently she's a liaison between the Army and the high school, and she did write a letter talking about the incident, and she said that she believes that Jeff and I, our time, that was well beyond 5 minutes, which I don't believe that that's true. And basically in the letter she blamed everything on the Marines. So that tells me that there's just a blame game happening, and that needs to just stop. What needs to happen is there needs to be structure for these future events, and make sure that it is equal access, exactly what was voted on, and that's carried out in a safe way for the students, because they looked really shocked.
Yeah.
They looked kind of troubled, and I don't really like seeing those looks on their faces at all.
Yeah, there's a trauma that has happened in their lives right then and there.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm somebody who thinks that this is so important that actually the school should have an assembly to talk about it. I think they need to talk about what it means when they have visitors come into their, whether it's military or recruiting or any visitor anywhere, you should have somebody there that's an adult that mediates those events. But they should be talking about what happened. And because, I mean, in any other place, I don't know what you're thinking, but I mean, there are many ways in which somebody might sue a high school for doing something like that. The parents could sue for their children being traumatized at that situation, And I think that the school needs to have an assembly to talk about that kind of thing and bring you guys back, bring those people back to make that apology to the students, to the school, and to us, the parents in the communities, and then the school board needs to regulate and make sure that whatever school you go to, that your recommendations there are heard and listened to and applied in some way or another. So I hope that that's something that can happen. People out there, I mean, veterans I know are going to be upset that this had even happened to any veteran. That you might want to, write to your school board member and let them know. If you want to know more about this, I mean, we do have it up on our Veterans for Peace website. That's www.vfpchapter72.org. You can read what Angie wrote about it, and that'll be up there. And we can probably provide you with a list of school board members that you should probably contact to let them know that this had happened, and to the Portland Recruiting Battalion. We can tell you that their address is 6130 Northeast 78th Court, Suite C11, Portland, Oregon 97218. If you wish to write a letter, I would like to see that flooded with letters. So that would be one thing that you could do. Another is that since you didn't get a chance to talk to those students, let's talk to them now.
Okay, let's do that.
Let's tell the students, what would you have been saying to those students in telling your stories?
Well, I would start out with, it is a very serious decision to make. And for some people, maybe it's the right decision, and that's okay. I'm not them. I know for me, when I was joining, there was nobody that was going to tell me not to do it. I was dead set on doing it. I think one of the things that they should be concerned about, there's things, for example, this happened to people I know, is stop loss. You can be kept in the military longer than your contract actually says.
Called the sort of backdoor draft.
A lot of basic things, like I don't think the students understand that they're actually going into the military for 8 years, not 4 years. They don't understand that there's a 4-year period of
sort of inactive reserves.
Of inactive reserves that is happening. And the fact that you could be facing and experiencing a lot of traumatic situations across the board that could potentially happen. That goes from an actual wartime situation. We have a horrible suicide epidemic right now in the military. It's beyond
22 a day, I think they said.
22 a day, and more military personnel killing themselves than dying in combat right now. Right. So that tells me that there are some serious, very grave circumstances that are causing people to be driven to that point, and it's probably not being handled very well. The rates of sexual violence, they don't understand that they're actually under the Uniform Code of Military Justice, which handles crime much differently than the civilian world. So if something happens, it's not like you can go to a counselor and say, well, this is what happened. No, you actually stand at attention in front of a bunch of usually older males and have to explain what happened.
Right.
And the problem with that is that you have to report this up your chain of command, which sometimes the perpetrator is in your chain of command. So that creates a lot of difficulty and complications. And and then there's a whole fact for me, this was a really big deal of transitioning out. Was very hard for me, actually. I didn't even want to think of myself as a veteran for a while. I wanted to just erase that from my memory. And then I had to come to grips with the fact that, okay, yes, I was gone for 4 years because I was overseas. I didn't see my family very much. I pretty much lost all of my community. And when I came back to the United States, some of my friends thought I was going to be brainwashed, and it was hard to actually incorporate myself back into any kind of like healthy social situation, because that really means everything to me. My community means everything to me. My family means a lot, but I don't have a big family, so my friends mean so very much to me. And that was pretty much decimated with the military. And so I think that those things should just, they should know about some of those things before they just...
Well, isn't it that, I mean, when I was in the military, I kind of felt like, though I didn't want to be there, the people I was around felt like family to me, you know. I mean, I was close to my veteran colleagues and friends, you know. They were sort of my battle buddies, I guess we call them. But did you, what was the, I thought you were, when I talked with you before, there was, you liked being in the military. What was that, what was the difference? What was the transition? What happened?
Transitioning out?
Yeah, transitioning out. I mean, if you were in the military, if you know, you liked what you were doing, I mean, you liked being in the military at the time, right? And is that true or not true?
Well, I both liked it and didn't like it. I liked the fact that I had some kind of structure in my life.
Okay.
I liked the fact that I was getting health care and getting dental care, because that didn't happen before I joined. I come from a poor family. I didn't get anything like that before then. And I liked the camaraderie. Of course, there was definitely positive aspects to that. But losing all of your friends, and just, it's really shocking to be with a group of people that you're really close to, and then they're gone. And then slowly realizing that pretty much everything that you were doing is advancing some type of Orwellian empirical thing that basically it's like living out somebody else's goal, you know.
Good point.
And I'm really not into living out the military's dream of what appears to me as the majority of it. And I'm not like anti-military, we shouldn't have any defenses or anything, but I don't think that we need to be so aggressive. And when finding out that, like, we pretty much we spend so much money on the military, we spend 60% of our economy on defense, it makes me sick, because there are homeless people that I'm stepping over when I'm going to work.
That's right. And
school funding is being cut, and people can't even go to the doctor if they need to. But we're building Reaper drones that cost $4.03 million a piece,
right,
and to kill Pakistani
and they're not shutting the
children.
government down over that.
Yeah, it really, we need to reset our priorities here.
Yeah,
that's my message, basically.
Okay, and Jeff, your message when you're talking with students, because you became a conscientious objector, so you imagine you tell them about that experience.
Yeah, I definitely, I was asked by one of my students that I was talking to, Angie was there, asked if I would do it again. And I would say yes, only because along the way I fought. I had a very different experience, and I think a lot of people do. When I saw things that I didn't agree with, I spoke my mind. When I saw what was going on around me was wrong, I wouldn't let that go without at least speaking it at some point and writing the line of the rules as often as possible. I knew them so that I could break them properly was always what I told myself. But I didn't leave having done something that I really regret. And I got out, my first sergeant actually called me a dog when I was getting out of the military. He wanted me gone. He didn't want me there because I brought down morale because I asked too many questions. So in that sense, I having worked in the hospital and things, I don't have the same regrets that a lot of soldiers do. My regrets come from simply my complicity in the overall war itself, just in general having served. I'm kind of torn between whether or not, how much I should, consider myself having done something wrong. And my biggest message for people would be just to look around. And right now we have a lot of comforts, but in my opinion a lot of these comforts are a direct result of the empire that we're building. And if you're okay with that, if you're really okay with people, everything that we're doing being built on the back of child labor and sex slavery and that kind of thing, and just all around violence from both our police and our military, if you're okay with that, then you know, continue going about your day. But if you think there's something more, if you think we're capable of doing something better, then you have a responsibility to stand up and get involved and see it through. You know, do your part while we're here and work for justice as best you can.
Good point. It's interesting. I was at a friend's house here the other night, and I was talking about meeting. He went back to Vietnam, and he was met with an old general on a train, you know, and he was talking to him, and everybody, he said all these other young people were talking, the soldiers, and the general stopped and said something to him about Veterans for Peace, and he said everybody just was silent, and he says, "Veterans for Peace, did you say?" He said, "Aren't all veterans for peace?" I thought, wow, what a story. And so, you know, your stories are so compelling that I'm really sad that those students didn't get a chance to hear that. More people need to hear that. I hope people get a chance to watch the video and send it to, if you're out there, send it to your friends. We're going to put it up on YouTube in a week or two. We'll have it out there. You can contact me, and I'll put it out there for everybody. So I want to thank you both for coming in. I want to thank Allison Perry for coming. And we're going to stretch this a little. We're stretching it a little bit. See, they tell me I was wrap it up now, stretch it. But I want to thank everybody for coming in here. And one of the things is you can get involved, become a part of Veterans for Peace. What's the name of the John's group again?
The War Resisters.
War Resisters League. Do you have a website for them?
It's I'm pretty sure it's warresistersleague.org.
.org. Okay, just contact them if you want to get involved and help veterans. This is one way to get involved. You don't have to be a veteran to be a part of Veterans for Peace. You can be an associate member. We're going to have a convention in Carolina in June, I believe it is, or Georgia. I can't remember exactly where in Carolina, but that'll be coming up. We're starting to do workshops. Also, check out the Vietnam Agent Orange Relief and Responsibility Campaign for signing those cards for House Bill HR 2519, and let's start turning this world around and make a better place for everybody. You know, that's any last words from you guys?
I think people should feel empowered. People should own their power. That's really important. People should feel like they have the power to do things.
Yep. And I think real heroes don't use guns, they use words to solve problems.
Sounds good to me. Maybe we can do a little rollout out here and say goodbye. We want to thank you. We'll have our next program will be coming up in the fourth Saturday of next month, and I'm looking forward to having some people come here to talk about a play that'll be coming up. It's going to be played at the Milagro Theater sometime in, the days keep changing on me, so September or October. But you come back next week and you'll learn more about that. And I'm really trying to stretch it out now, or I would have kept going. Again, there was just recently officer who, for military sexual trauma, just got off. Do you remember who that was?
Yeah, mm-hmm. he was I believe a general,
yeah.
Was it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I think he got a $20,000 slap on the wrist or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Apparently that's what it costs to be able to sexually harass somebody. I don't know.
No,
That's
he got off. There's no jail time, and for oftentimes women that have reported these crimes or harassments and rape in the military are the ones that actually have been imprisoned themselves and or run out of the military or told to shut up and face harassment in very many different ways afterwards. And so to see that this general got off is just horrendous in my opinion. And for any of you young people that are going into the military, you know, women, it's not only women that have been raped in the military, it's men that have been raped in the military. And people have to realize there's something very wrong about what war and violence and this sort of military industrial complex to solve our problems in the world with, like you said, with guns and not words, is not the direction that we need to be going. We need to find another way to talk to people. And that's the only thing I can say, is that we need to be out there talking to people. It's why we have the program, so that we can talk to people. I should say that one of my, I had somebody that wrote into the program, wrote into me, and basically told me that I should just shut up. And but it was a military person, and instead of responding that way, I said, first of all, I was glad to know that somebody was watching the show. And second, I thought, well, let me, I wrote back to him and respected, whatever your vision is, tell me what I did wrong, like you said, I said I'm a veteran for peace. Tell me where that's wrong. Tell me, where, if I care about other human beings, their lives, their health, that's wrong. And we began having a conversation, and in the end, he said, well, I really respect what you're doing, and that something like that could turn around in such a short period of time. And it just changed my whole idea of how you talk to people, because some years back I would have just responded equally as belligerent.
I got that email when you sent it to me. It actually had some influence on me. I really appreciate how you kept it very, very calm.
It was very, it's hard, and I'm surprised, you kept it calm when you guys were with those military people in the schools. That's been a hard thing. I know that a few of my friends would have been in their faces.
You just can't handle it that way.
Yeah, not with those kids. So we've got again, we have been stretching it out, but it's stretching it out with what is important. And again, like I said, come back again, and we'll be here next month on the fourth Saturday of the month. This is Dan with Veterans for Peace, Angie Hines, Jeff Shoemaker, and Allison Perry, who has left from the earlier part of the program. And we want to thank you all for tuning in.